Marc, thank you so much for being here. Marc is the scientific director of the French NGO Hutan and co-director of the Kinabatangan Orangutan Conservation Project, which is a community-based program active in wildlife research, conservation, and community development in Sabah for a very long time now. One of the things that I'm really keen to hear about is the tree planting that Marc and his team do. So I'd like you all, please, to welcome Marc. Marc, you're on.
Yes, good morning and good evening to everyone, since we have a very international community. So I'm talking to you from Borneo. I am based. I have been based in Sabah, the northern part of the island, for 25 years now. And together with our team, we try to find ways to save the orangutan and the forest and all the animals that we find here in Kinabatangan. So I have prepared a few slides. So I would like to know, can you see that or?
Not yet. No. Can you see the share button at the bottom?
Screen. Yes, here we are.
Something's happening. There we go.
Okay, yeah. So Hutan was created by Isabel and myself in '96, and at this time, we really wanted to try to identify ways for wildlife and people to coexist within, but more importantly, outside of protected areas. Why? Because we realized at this time that especially the large mammals, they won't stay their entire life in the network of protected areas. There will always be a time where they will leave the safety of these protected areas and end up in places that are also used by people. And so if we don't address this issue of coexistence, well, this is really jeopardizing the viability of the protected population, isn't it? And I was quite interested to hear from Dr. Wong that he has more and more signs of sun bear going into the plantation, because this is really a trend we see more and more in Sabah and in Borneo for more and more species. And so it's something we were really keen on working on together with Isabel. And so this is why we created this project. So first, orangutan. I guess everybody knows we have 3 species of orangutan. 2 are found in Sumatra. 1 is found in Borneo. The species in Borneo is split in 3 different subspecies. They are all critically endangered. So here I have a message to give to all of you. Orangutan being critically endangered doesn't mean that it's going to go extinct anytime soon. All this news about extinction of the species is wrong, because I can tell you that orangutan is not going to go extinct in the wild anytime soon. Some of the populations in Malaysia, but also in Indonesia, are stable. Some of them start to grow their number. The issue and the reason why we decided to classify the species as critically endangered is because we have lost so many of them in the past few decades. So the trend has been very steep decline. This decline is starting to stop, and in some places, as I said, Sabah being one of the examples, Sarawak as well, the population we have in these 2 states are completely stable for most of them. What's going to happen in the next few decades, if we keep the business as usual approach, is that we may lose maybe half of the remaining population in Indonesia. But even in Indonesia, as I said, some of the population are doing well. So my message here is to say that yes, orangutan is critically endangered, but no, it's not going to be extinct in the wild in the near future, because you hear that a lot in the media, and every time I hear that, I'm like, no, it's not true. Okay, so this is a good news in a way. So this is Isabel, and so together, Isabel is French also, and in '96, we created Hutan, registered in France. We moved to Sabah and we started the Kinabatangan Orangutan Conservation Project. At this time, we really wanted to know if orangutans were able to survive in degraded forest. 25 years ago, scientists didn't believe this was possible. At this time, everybody was convinced that orangutan couldn't survive outside of primary forest, intact forest. Thing is that when we visited Sabah the first time in '94, we found out that there were orangutan in very disturbed forests. So we were really puzzled by these findings, and this is why we decided to start studying this question. So we are based in Lower Kinabatangan, quite close to Wong. Wong is in Sandakan, which is about 2 hours drive from where we are. In this map, you see the protected forest of the Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary in gray. When we started in '98, it was not protected. Now it is protected. In green, these are other types of protected forest. In yellow or white, this is primarily all palm plantation and other land dominated by human activities. So I show this map because it illustrates very well our major issue in Kinabatangan, which is habitat fragmentation, explaining also why more and more animals are leaving the safety of this forest and are ending up in the agricultural landscape. Kinabatangan is an amazing place. We still have a nice forest. We have a lot of wildlife, this proboscis monkey, western tarsier, 10 primate species, more than 300 species of birds. And the thing is, this is a landscape today. So the forest has been converted to primarily oil palm plantation in the late 80s, 90s. So today, as I just said, the problem we are facing is this fragmentation. First thing we did when we started the work 35 years ago was to hire a team of local villagers, and we started to research on wild orangutans. So this is an orangutan team, and every day they go into the forest, they habituate wild orangutan, they follow them, and we want to understand how these animals can survive in this new landscape, the degraded forest. I'm not going to go into the details, but 25 years of research shows that actually orangutan do super well in disturbed forest. They have changed a little bit their diet, they change a little bit their social system and so forth, but they do extremely well, which is a good news because most of the forests where you find orangutan nowadays have been exploited in the past for timber extraction or other things. So this is not primary forest anymore anyway. But the orangutan do super well in these places as long as people do not shoot them. And for the longest time, we were convinced, scientists were convinced that orangutan couldn't survive in a disturbed forest. But actually, there was a confounding factor, which was hunting. A lot of time when the forest is exploited, you have hunters following, and this was what was responsible for orangutan demise. I said habitat fragmentation is the major threat in Kinabatangan. So for example, orangutan cannot swim. So as soon as you have a drain or as soon as you have removed all the natural bridges, the big trees, they cannot cross river or drains anymore. So you split and you fragment the population even more. So what we do now is to establish these orangutan bridges. Orangutan bridges, actually we should call them macaque bridges because macaques are always plentiful. They really like to use our bridges, but it also works for orangutan. So this is a very simple way if you want to address this type of fragmentation issues. Like Wong said about the sun bear, we realized during our research that orangutan are increasingly found in oil palm plantation. They go there for dispersal. Here you see orangutan moving from palm to palm, but they also move a lot on the ground. Actually, orangutan are much more terrestrial than what we thought before. Even in the forest, even the large male, small male, female, juvenile, everybody is walking in the orangutan world. So this is all shots of camera traps, and we have now a lot of these pictures showing orangutan moving on the ground, of course in the plantation, but as I said, also in the forest, disturbed forest or primary forest, the same. They go to the plantation to feed. They feed on fruit, they feed on young shoots. So of course, when they feed on young shoots, like you see in this picture, they damage the plant. So we have a bit of a conflict situation here that we try to address with the growers. They use the palm to nest. you can see a few pictures showing here nest on palms, at the top of the palm. And very recently, this is what we found, orangutan nesting on the ground in the old palm context. This is new to science. This kind of behavior has hardly been recorded before. And to me, this is a proof of how this resilient species can adapt to the new conditions of life found in the plantation. But more importantly, we find resilient females with babies. So this means that they can survive in this plantation, at least in places where you have small patches of forest, and they breed. So in the orangutan world, the orangutan, the females are it's a philopatric species, meaning that the females are going to stay where they were born. They are resident. So if you find a female in a small patch of forest in a plantation, most probably this means that she used to live there before forest conversion. Some of the trees were not chopped down, so she stayed there, and she's gonna stay there her entire life, okay? If we find babies in this condition, this means that males are able to join them at some point. And this is a new understanding of the situation we have about orangutan dynamic in multiple use landscapes. You will have population surviving in big forests, protected forest or not. At the edge between the forest and the plantation, you will have a lot of intrusion. So the orangutan are leaving the forest, going to the plantation, not very far, maybe 50 yards, 50 meters, to feed on the palms and go back to the forest. But importantly, if we have resident females like in the middle of this diagram, surviving in small patches of forest, they will be there as long as people don't shoot them or move them. And males are the one to wander across the entire landscape. And this is very important because this means that through these males who are wandering across the landscape, well, they link the different subpopulation to one another. So it's a way if you want to prevent genetic fermentation as well. So this is very new to science. Nobody has really worked on this. And this understanding, of course, brings a lot of ideas to manage this population. For example, I did mention translocation. Well, wild translocation is not an option for orangutans because most probably the female you will move won't survive a translocation. And if we remove the female from this forest island, there won't be any incentive for the males to cross the plantation. If the males don't cross the plantation anymore, all the protected population will become completely isolated. So it's not viable in the long term. So this is a kind of research we are doing right now in orangutan. Over the years, Hutan has grown. So it's a community-led organization, meaning that besides Isabel and I, all the staff is from the local villages. As of today, we are about 140 people working for Hutan. And of course, we realized very soon that if we wanted to protect a species like the orangutan, you cannot focus only on the orangutan. You need to focus on the issues faced by the community. You need to focus on the ecosystems, how to restore it, to maintain it, to improve it, and so forth. So if you want, over the years, we have developed a holistic approach to conservation. I would like now just to give a few examples of what the different units are doing. So something we are very much involved in is to secure wildlife corridors to link together the patches of forest that are isolated so we can acquire land. And of course, most of the time the land is degraded. So we have two teams of women doing restoration and reforestation. This is a very difficult job because planting a tree is not that complicated, as we all know. But the thing is, if we don't maintain the tree, most probably it won't survive. So our maintenance lasts for at least 3 years, and we aim for a survival rate of the seedlings of 80% and above. This is working very well, but as I said, it's really a tough job, and these women are an amazing team of people who really care and nurture the seedling they can plant. The seedlings, we source them from the community, which create a new source of income for people in the village. So we buy the seedlings from the community. We take care of them at our collection center. When they are ready to be sent back to the forest, the team takes them and plants them and maintains them for 3 years at least. So it's an amazing, as I said, it's an amazing team doing an amazing job. We are blessed in Kinabatangan to have elephants. So the Bornean elephants is one of our current residents, but of course, elephants like orangutan, like sun bear, like many other species, they leave the protection of the forest sometimes and they end up close to people's belongings. One of the issues we had at the very beginning was that the elephants, as you can see on the picture top left, they used to go to the local graveyard and destroy everything. So destroy the graves, the coffin, everything. So it was really a difficult thing to accept for the local community. So when we realized that the community had this kind of issues with elephants, we created a unit to address the conflict with elephants. And over the year, this unit has been very successful in minimizing the extent of conflicts, if you want. And today, if you come to Suka or to Kinabatangan, people are much more accepting this coexistence with elephants. I need to mention that now the elephant activities are undertaken primarily by Seratu Atai, which is another group led by Dr. Farina, a Malaysian scientist. And so we work together, Utan and Seratu Atai, to address this kind of situation. Our team is also working with birds like hornbills. You all know what are hornbills, are magnificent birds. So we also work with another group called Gaia, in this case, a group based in West Malaysia. We realized years ago that these hornbills were able to survive in Kinabatangan, but very little occurrence of breeding. And we did a lot of assessment and we found out that the reason why the large species were not able to breed was because of the lack of natural cavities, because all the large major trees, big trees have been removed in Kinabatangan. So what we did was to use the skills and expertise from some of our partners, in this case zoos, and we started to build these artificial nest boxes. And in the picture here you see a male feeding one of the young within one of these artificial nest boxes. So this is a project that is going well, but it's not easy to find the proper design and the proper box to attract the rhinoceros hornbill or helmeted hornbill. But we have got some successes, which is great. The team also does a lot of primate monitoring, frog monitoring. We want to understand, if you want, how biodiversity is responding to habitat fragmentation and habitat regeneration in Kinabatangan. I'm not going to go into the details. If you are interested, you can just ask me after the presentation. Another of our projects is to protect colonies of swiftlet that are producing nests used to do the nest soup. So the problem was that in this case, there was no protection, so people, poachers would come, steal the nest and destroy everything. So about 15 years ago, we decided with the people from the village to protect these caves. As you can see, the number of breeding pairs has been going up throughout the years. As of today, we have more than 4,500 pairs of swiftlet nesting in these caves. We are not harvesting the nest yet, but soon what we want to set up is a project together with the community where they will be in charge of the protection and the sustainable harvesting of this nest. So it's in a way we can provide a new financial incentive for the community to do conservation. And of course, in the forest around these caves, we have orangutan, we have sun bear, and so forth. So it's also added protection to these animals living close to the caves. I started my journey as a conservationist about 30 years ago. I'm a veterinarian by training. And at this time, I was super duper interested in wildlife. So I went to Africa, I went to Saudi Arabia, to Madagascar to work with wildlife because my interest is wildlife. But over the years, really realized that conservation is not about wildlife, not at all. It's really about people. So when you are convinced of this, because if you let the animals on their own, they will be okay, isn't it? The problem is always man-made. So we need to address these problems. We need to engage with people. So when we realized that, we decided to create a unit in charge of awareness raising. So we have now a team of educators that is going throughout the state. A lot of time we work together with a team from Wong, Dr. Wong, and so we do exhibition, we go to schools, and we raise awareness about the need to better manage, to better protect our environmental resources here in the state. And this is very efficient, and it's very nice to see that especially the younger generation is really avid to get this kind of information. Last, we do research like Dr. Wong, but we use this research for conservation, meaning that we use the research to share our data with the government, with the corporates, to try to decide for better management practices. So like Dr. Wong, because in Sabah, we all know each other, which is great. So we work all together with the government. We produce our data, we share our data, and we can develop new policies, new management plan to have a better situation for wildlife in the States. So my point is that we bring all the data collected in the field to the higher level in order to create an environment where the wildlife we are keen on can thrive. So this has been our journey for the past 25 years. Right now, we are still expanding. We are still taking on new projects. This was just a very brief overview of what Hutan is doing. And of course, our work is made possible by the support of our partners, mostly private foundation and zoos. And yeah, this is the way we have been operating for the past 25 years. So now I'm going to stop because I guess we could have time for a question in this case.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That's absolutely impressive to hear so much work that you've been doing, Marc. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'm totally impressed with the level of the broad nature of the programs that you've done, and that idea that conservation is about people, not about animals, is something that I think will stick with me for a while. I'm sure that actually resonated with a lot of us here. So thank you so much for all the work you and your team are doing. I'd like to open it up for questions from everyone. We've got one that Kohi has put on the question on the comments, so I'll read that one out first. Can macaques coexist well with orangutans and sun bears, both in the wild and in Sepalok, or do they compete for resources and harass or stress out the larger animals? That's probably a good one for both of you.
For me, based in Kinabatangan, of course, macaques are doing well. The type of species that respond very well to all these changes that are happening in the landscape. I don't see direct competition between macaques and orangutan, for example, or elephants, not at all. The thing is that macaques are invading the village sometimes, so this creates problems with people. We are, having said that, we have one species of monkeys, the red leaf monkey, that is declining in Kinabatangan. All the other primate species have maintained their number, and I don't know, and also gibbons, sorry. So these two species are declining. I don't know why, because it might be due to competition with other primate species. We haven't found out why these two species are declining while the other one are doing very, very fine. But macaques is not an issue in Kinabatangan except in the village. Maybe in Sepilok the situation is different, so because they are more used to people.
Have you got anything to add on that one, Wong?
Well, yeah, the macaque in Sepilok is a very interesting issue because of the supplemental feeding between the orangutan center and the sun bear center, and then they live in a very, very good life. Resources is limited, food resources is limited. They are breeding like no tomorrow, including creating the hybrid, which is rare in in the past. Yeah. And then so this hybrid macaque being created in such an human landscape. Obviously they are very robust species, and then we see that the sun bears are actually quite tolerant for the macaque to come and eat the sun bear food. And then sun bear did not hunt them, did not kill them for food. And then the hybrid macaque issue is not only found here. Lately, we also found that other plantation where obviously supplemental feeding from the oil palm seed makes the two species of macaque spend more time together and create a hybrid. So things are changing. Definitely, a new species is in the creation, and so that might bring some food for thought for conservations in the
Things
future.
in the future, you're thinking.
Speaking of hybrids, what we have here in Kinabatangan is hybrids between proboscis and silverleaf monkey.
Yeah, even more amazing.
Can you dropped out a little bit, Mark? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I said, speaking of hybrids, here in Kinabatangan, we have hybrids between proboscis monkey and silverleaf monkey.
Really?
I mean, it's not happening that often, but already a few cases. And I know a group where you can find one of these hybrids. So yeah, as Wong said, I mean, this is evolution, isn't it? So new situation on the ground, new ecosystems, and the species are adapting.
Okay, we have another question from Diane. Diane, would you like to ask your question, or shall I read it?
I see the question. The question is about how bridge may assist in saving species aside from orangutans. Oh, sorry, Diana.
That's all right.
Turn on your computer that's my mother. Can you turn on your computer volume? No, unmute yourself and turn on the computer volume. It's at the bottom of the screen, typically on the right side.
That's all right. She's doing well, aren't you, Diane?
So, well, we have seen gibbons using our bridges. So definitely gibbons are like orangutan, unable to swim. For the other species, they can swim. So it's not a big deal. They don't really need our bridges. But we cannot forget that we have a lot of crocodiles in the area. So definitely proboscis monkeys, macaques, they will always prefer to use our bridges than taking a risk and have a swim.
Yeah.
But I think these bridges in our situation is really for species who cannot swim, and this is mostly primarily apes, so gibbons and orangutan. It's also a hotspot for tourism now, because every time you are in Kinabatangan doing a boat cruise, you will see always 2, 3, 4 boats under the bridge, looking at these proboscis or these macaques using the bridge or sleeping on the bridge. It's really cool. But it was not at all what we had in mind.
Their own use. And can I ask a question too about the corridors? You've done a lot of work on the corridors, and I know that there is it 150 feet sort of a wildlife corridor that is supposed to be on the edge of the river, but the river meanders, doesn't it? So it's sort of eroding that corridor. So are you finding you're having to take corridor back from palm plantations to try and keep that corridor along the edge of the river?
Yeah, the problem is that this land belongs to plantation, so you cannot just take it back. So what we do is to engage with this industry, engage with the growers, and try to convince them about the value of retaining riparian forest. So for those companies who are RSPO certified, it's a must. So it's a bit easier for this one, but for the small holders or for the medium-sized companies that are not certified, it's much more complicated. Having said that, the plantation in Kinabatangan have been established 30, 40 years ago. So a lot of them are now entering a second cycle of replanting, because the palms are replanted every 25 years. So it gives us a window of opportunity to convince the people to not plant their palms all the way to the river, but to just respect this riparian. So there is still a lot of work to be done about this, but at least in our area, the lower part of Kinabatangan, where we are based, I see that the situation is a bit better now. It really starts to improve. I mean, I mentioned that earlier. We are now in a restoration phase in Kinabatangan. Most of the damages have been done. So now we are left with the impact, with the results of these bad practices, the past bad practices. And more people are convinced that we need to restore the ecosystem. So it's an ongoing battle, if you want.
Yeah.
There are still plantations who have planted their palm all the way to the river, which is by law shouldn't happen. But...
Okay. Beth, would you like to answer that, or shall I read it for you? We'll just read. Hey, such important and inspiring work, Marc. I agree that people are the problem, but also the solution. Thanks for your talk and the work that you do. That's from Beth, who is an educator at the University of the Sunshine Coast and researcher who's actually worked together with Wong with her students, working on data of the sun bears, right? Wong, mostly about the released sun bears?
Yes, yeah, we just published, Beth and her students have us analyze our 12 released bears data since 2015. And then the paper just being published officially last month, I think. Yeah, last month, yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, do we have any other questions? Feel free to take yourself off mute and ask, or I'm happy to read them if you prefer typing.
While people are thinking, I want to rebound on this comment by Beth. I'm completely convinced the same. We are all part of the problems because we are all consumers, but we can, if we decide to, also all of us be part of the solution. The problem is how to impact people who don't know about these issues, people who are not aware of it. And this is really one of my headaches all the time. I mean, because all the people who are together today, we are all convinced of all of this. We know about this and we try our best, isn't it? But what about the 80% or so of people who don't know about it, who are not interested, or it's not part of their priorities? And this is always my struggle. How can we get access to more people? Because to me, the solution is people. Conservation is about people. So problem people, solution people too.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Marc. And I'd like to add to that in the first semester every year at University of Sunshine Coast, I teach Introduction to Sustainability, and there we're getting students from all different disciplines coming into this course, many of whom, to them, sustainability means recycling, and it means nothing more than that, you know. And it's one of my greatest joys is at the end of the semester finding people actually where pennies are dropping all over the place about all the, you know, about the SDGs and what they're for and why it's important and how we need to engage with these big ideas. So yeah, I agree with you that we really somehow need to we need to spread the tentacles, I guess, of these ideas, don't we?
Because my experience is that nature is very resilient. I mean, we are in a place, some of you know the place, of course, one knows the place, Kinabatangan, super degraded, super fragmented, but still a lot of wildlife. Why? Because here the local people, the Rangsungai, are not really hunters. And so if we give a chance to wildlife, I don't say that all species will survive, unfortunately, but a lot of them will be able to adjust, to adapt, to survive. It's really up to us to decide if we want to coexist with these animals or not. And since I still have a bit of time, I hope, I always like to remind people that wherever they are living, coexistence is an issue. People living in a city, for example, are they ready to share their space with a spider, with whatever animals, creatures are inside our house? Because if we are not ready to coexist with a small spider, we cannot expect other people to coexist with elephants, with sun bear, with tigers.
Yeah, very true.
So it's really something, it's a global issue, this coexistence. This will be, to me, this is a major threat for wildlife. For the Anthropocene, for our era. And this is something we really need to work hard on. If not, we're going to lose everything.
Really important point. Yeah, well done. Thank you so much, Marc, for your time today and sharing those important ideas with us. It's really fabulous. And thank you, Wong, for being here as usual. Marc and Wong, would you like to give us another, I don't know, 1 minute each to tell us just a little bit how we can actually help you directly? Marc, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's simple. I mean, as we just spoke about awareness, I really think it's important. So spread the word and organize this kind of events is very important. Unfortunately, at Hutan, we don't welcome volunteers, only Malaysian, because as I said, besides Isabel and I, all our staff is from Malaysia, from the local communities. This is our priority. Having said that, if you guys visit Kinabatangan, we can always meet and the team can always show you what we are doing. But I think for us, yeah, spreading the word is really the most important thing to do. For people to be aware of the reality and to not go for easy solution like boycott, this kind of stuff, it doesn't work. So for people to really be aware of the real issues and what can be done at the individual level to improve the situation.
Well done. Yeah, it's about hope and building that, isn't it, really? And Wong, would you like to finish off that one? Thank you so much, Marc.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. I echo Marc's every single words. The things that the Sunbest Conservation Center is trying to do is what Marc is trying to do for the last 30 years. And we are learning from Marc's approaches and all the words that he said just now. And then I think for me, beside what Marc said, it's very important to educate and understand yourself first. Like I need to read Dr. James Goodall quote, only if we understand can we care, only if we care can we help, only if we help shall they be safe. So there are 4 processes over here. First is to understand. Once you understand, you will start to care. If you are a normal beings, yeah, and then when you care, you are willing to help is the actions and put something on action and try to change things and things like that, and then hopefully they will be safe. And then for sun bears and all other wildlife as well, I think there is always room for people to help. And then, as I always say, is do what you do best to help all the wildlife, help sun bears, help orangutans, and then spread the words is very, very important. And then if you have the resources to come over here to Borneo to experience yourself firsthand information, smell the forest, see how amazing is a rainforest, see how amazing is our wildlife, and then at the same time see the destructions, and yeah, so you will understand and see how poor people here lived, is another issue. And there's no separations of people and wildlife. In order to make wildlife happy, we need to make people happy as well. And how are we going to do that in the next 10 years is going to be a challenge for all of us, especially with the conservation communities. Thank you.
Well done. That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you very much, Wong. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I hope we'll see you all here again next month. The time will be chosen soon, but the date will be the 10th of next month. So 10th of July, mark it in your calendars, and I'll send you an email with the exact time, which rotates every single month so that we can get people from all over the world joining us. It's wonderful that this group is growing and you're now part of it. So please spread the word, tell your friends, make sure that when you get your email that you share it with others so we can keep growing a group of people that really care about wildlife and wild places. So thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next month.